And the next speaker in this panel is Filip Zagórski. Yeah, very difficult surname. Sorry for my bad pronunciation. Filip is co-founder and creative director in Type 2, this is his studio. He's also teacher in School of Form of Potsdam and also the SWPS University. Okay, and he will explain. Let me say, he will explain deeply this paradoxal approach in the Polish design between East and West. These two forces that are fitting against them. So please join me on the stage, and the stage is yours. This is the. Thank you.
Right. So, yes, my name is Filip Zagórski. I'm a partner at Type 2 Studio based in Warsaw. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Polish context of graphic design, what it means to be a graphic designer working in Poland. And I'm going to give you an autobiographical, short historical introduction. So I was born in 81, which was a tough time in Poland. We had something called martial law. It was hard to go shopping at the time. There was not a lot of things back in the stores. This is one of the photographs that became like an icon of the era. It's in the movie theater called Moscow. They were playing Francis Ford Coppola movie Apocalypse Now, and it was pretty much an apocalypse for the Poles. I don't remember much of those times, but this is what it supposedly looked like. And here's a Polish-Italian connection, because the Polish socialist government decided to buy a license from Fiat to produce our own Polish version of little Fiat. It was called in Polish Maluch, which means baby Fiat. So it was even smaller than Fiat Cinquecento. Very dangerous car, but as long as the times were hard in Poland, my dad got an offer to go and work in Algeria. So in this little car, in a family of 4, I have one little brother, we moved to Africa. And we came back for the first free elections and the change of the system in '89. This is one of the famous posters for the elections. This is Gary Cooper playing a sheriff in an American movie, High Noon, I think it was called. Like a symbol of somebody fighting the communism. We had roundtable talks, which ended with the bloodless change of the system. This is the cover of the first issue of so-called Gazeta Wyborcza, which means the election newspaper. This is a place where both of my parents started working when we came back to Poland. This is a bit of a graphic design from the era. Election posters. As you can see, they were using very low tech printing techniques, but eventually they were successful. And the Solidarity movement won the elections, and we battled the communism. So yeah, this guy became the first free prime minister. Lech Wałęsa became the first free president of the country. And with a lot of optimism, we entered the era of the 90s. So we had a lot of things to catch up. This is the opening of the first McDonald's restaurant in the city center of Warsaw. Very excited, policeman. We had bazaars blooming everywhere on each corner of the city. So finally, you could go shopping. This is the opening of the first IKEA store that totally revolutionized the way Poles lived, the way the Polish flats looked like. This is a Polish version of Madonna eating the slice of the Western pizza that we didn't have before. And basically we entered the era of turbo capitalism. It wasn't just capitalism, it was turbo capitalism. It was a golden age for the advertising agencies because there was no advertising before. People started to make a lot of money. And this whole thing got a little bit out of control. So the Polish public space ended up looking like this. You can blame the technological revolution to the desktop computers, which kind of democratized our profession, so everybody could be a graphic designer. And this is what it looks like today. So you can tell that we are a very creative nation. It's hard to concentrate though when you enter the city driving. And as you guys in Italy have this phenomenon of Italo disco, right? We have something similar which is called disco Polo. And another friend of ours, very good graphic designer from Poland, came up with the term Tipo Polo. That sort of describes this vernacular Polish approach to typography. Again, quite creative. You can sense this DIY spirit. And this is the project by the same guy who came up with the term. This is the Tipo Polo version of Helvetica. Just like Helvetica was supposed to be like the national typeface of Switzerland. This, I think, could be described as the ultimate Polish typeface. So, fuck the rules. And yeah, this is the city center of Warsaw. This picture was taken a couple years ago, but it still looks pretty much the same nowadays. And this is a glimpse of what it could look like if the Poles were in charge in Rome, for example, or Paris. So thank you for inviting us. This is Athens, Berlin. Another phenomenon trying to describe you the scenery in which we operate is the phenomenon of logomania. Everything needs a logo in Poland. This is, for example, a slide showing all of the state-run governmental institutions. So not a very systematic approach. This is a couple of different ministries. Again, each one has their own different logo. We have different regions with different logos, one worse than another. Every city, of course, has their own logo, so we have a lot of work to do. And this is something that I came across lately, the report from the implementation of the budget and the EU funds by the Ministry of Culture from Poland. This is an official document set in Comic Sans italic. So I don't know if you know this website Trend List. I think it could do okay on the trend list. So it looks more like some kind of an underground disco advertisement flyer than an official document. So this bar for graphic designer in Poland is rates pretty high. You can't compete with those guys. So basically, Poland is a paradise for designers. It's a land of opportunities. And now I'm gonna show you a couple of our projects. This is a project for the National Museum in Warsaw. which is the biggest cultural institution in the country, one of the biggest museums. We won the competition for the new visual identity. This is what it looked like before. They had two different logos which they used at the same time. As with all of the branding projects, we started with the context. So this is a very serious, traditional institution. Very serious building. You can't see much here, but they also had, I think, 10 different what's the word? Oddziały? Branches of the museum. So we had to come up with a system to unite all of those. Oh, this is the Museum of Poster, which is a special thing in Poland. We praise the history of poster up to the point where we have the Museum of Poster, which is also part of the National Museum of Warsaw. So the idea with which we won the competition was super simple. It was the abbreviation of the whole name, which they all they used in the institution. This is the website address, so MNW. The good thing is that we found out that it works both ways, in Polish and in English, because it's NMW, National Museum in Warsaw, in English. And this is the symbol. The full logo. The forms were based on the architecture of the main venue. Here's some of the pages from the manual, the pattern we came up with, the typography, trying to unite the tradition with modernity, and then some of the other applications. During the competitions, we prepared it very carefully with a big attention to details. So in the end, after winning the contest, we were able to push through most of the things that were in the presentation during the competition. So this is from the presentation. It went up to the navigation system. We proposed the full option. Later, it took us a good couple years to implement the whole thing. This is what it looks like today. This is the layout of the outdoor campaigns, the posters. So the main challenge in this project, and basically during every bigger project we do in Poland, is this fight with our systematic approach and trying to clean up the city, as my colleague was mentioning before, with the Slavic soul that kind of doesn't allow to do those things. They don't go very good together. This is a slide showing it took us 3 years to convince the directors of the museum that they could unite and have a system for the posters. This is also part of the implementation of our navigation system project. We designed the stelas that could be movable, but the museum decided to make them out of steel. So they were so heavy they couldn't move them around. And this is a moment where they realized they were too heavy. Another project that I wanted to talk about is for the same institution that Edgar was working for. he did the branding, the visual identity, and we were commissioned to design a promotional campaign for the opening of the new venue. The venue that you could see on his presentation is pretty much in the center of the city, but it used to be the municipal cleaning company place. So now finally we have a theater. And it's not only a theater, they do all sorts of different multidisciplinary events. So here we were trying to combine pictures from the theater place and other performances with documentation of the building and the whole project. This is how it looked like out on the streets. Some repertoire posters with the same idea. This is actually a collaboration with Edgar. For the last, I think, about 10 years, we've been designing identities for all sorts of different events that take place in a theater. This is, for example, for the theater play for the younger audience, for kids, Pinocchio, which sort of praised the rebellious spirit of the kids. This is the main actor. I designed the tattoos also as part of the program of the theater play. This is another project for the event called Political Kitchen, which was exploring the politics of food and food production. So we came up with the fictitious flags of fictitious food nations. Some more posters from different events from the same theater. This is a set of posters for the Experimental Music Installations Festival. And one more project I wanted to show you is for the Warsaw Public Transport. Again, we managed to win a big design competition last year. Now, this is what it looked like before. Each mean of transportation in Warsaw has their own logo. So the idea was to come up with the new brand, that would unite it all and make it a little more simple for the passengers, which is standard in most of the European cities, right? In Warsaw, we have 2 metro lines, and this is usually an example we give when we try to explain what it's like to be a graphic designer in Poland. So we have 2 metro lines, and each one has their own visual identity and own navigation system, just to make it a little more tricky for the passengers, especially if you're a foreign passenger. And we came up with this simple solution of a letter T with the mermaid tail, which is the coat of arms, the symbol of the city of Warsaw. This is self-explanatory, right? This is what it looks like. We were also asked to design a set of icons for all of the different means of transportation. Now, the sad thing is that they just took the logo. So basically, we have a situation that all of the previous logos stayed, and now we have one more sign, just bigger, as you can see as here. This is a photo that we got from one of the fans, I think, of the project. The whole project was implemented in January when it's very cold in Warsaw. So we were told that when the temperature drops below 0, they stop cleaning the buses, trams. So they cleaned only the place for the logo. So, yes. This is what we're dealing with. The the Polish paradoxes, right? We're in the middle of West and East. We want to have some sort of the rigor, but at the same time, the Polish Slavic soul doesn't allow us to have too many rules, and if we have any rules, we want to break them. So this brings us to your fellow, a very important person for me, Massimo Vignelli, and his famous quote that it's a constant, life of a designer is a constant battle. So we're trying, we're fighting, and to finish the presentation, I want to talk about new challenges for the graphic designers nowadays, because we have another complicated time right now from the political point of view, with a lot of tension with the new government that is trying to dismantle the rule of law in Poland and all of the democratic institutions that the previous generation was fighting for. And this is a project by a friend of ours, Luka Rajski, who was asked by Edgar and his wife. They came up with the project called Democracy Illustrated Democracy, if you translate it. And he came up with the very simple poster with the word constitution in Polish that includes the word ty, which means you, and ja, me, and the colors of the Polish flag. So super simple. And a couple months later, after submitting the project, if I remember the story well, we had a lot of demonstrations going on in Poland. And at this point of the total frustration, because you can't do much, our friends decided to print this poster and distribute it among the people demonstrating out on the streets of the city. And all of a sudden, it went viral. It became a symbol of the resistant movement. So all of a sudden, everybody had the poster. It went on the news, and then it went on. This year, people came up with another action to dress up Polish monuments in T-shirts with the Konstytucja design. Some of them got in trouble for doing so. This is the Konstytucja banner on the most famous monument in Warsaw City. And this is the guy who fought the communists, Lech Wałęsa, wearing the T-shirt. So this is a nice story that shows you the power of graphic design, and a story of how a simple poster can become a symbol of the resistant movement. And this is the kind of the role the graphic design should play, hopefully. And this is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Filip.
Thank you.
A quick question for you, but also for Edgar in this sense. You are both teachers, so
Yes.
I mean, are you teaching those kind of paradoxes to your students, or you want that they maintain this history in the next generations?
Well, it's we try to help them realize those paradoxes, the context in which they are working or will be working professionally. So it's good to help them realize it. And I just think we're in a different moment than you guys or the Swiss colleagues, right? Because we still have to clean it up. The public sphere is so visually polluted that it just needs some serious cleaning. So, so we're not that tired of the modernist ideas of Massimo Vignelli and guys like him, right?
Okay. Want to add something, or it's okay? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.